Taiwanese beef noodle soup is often called Taiwan's national dish. But the very idea of nationhood, and whether Taiwan is a country, sits at the center of one of today's most contentious geopolitical disputes. Pull up a chair to come cook Taiwanese beef noodle soup with me while we explore why Taiwanese identity is so fiercely contested. Taiwanese beef noodle soup is deeply flavored and full of complexity. The soup is made by simmering beef with soy sauce, onions, tomatoes, and spices, then served over wheat noodles and topped with pickled mustard greens and herbs. There are as many variations as there are Taiwanese families, made with different spices, cuts of meat, and vegetables. Today, this beef noodle soup is unmistakably Taiwanese, but it didn't originate there. Its roots trace back to mainland China, brought over by soldiers and their families who fled during the Chinese Civil War, and specifically from the Sichuan province. Over time, the flavors morphed to fit local tastes, including the addition of some ingredients like tomatoes, and a move away from others like spicy peppercorns. This dish is a perfect metaphor for Taiwan, influenced by China, but deeply local, proudly distinct, and uniquely its own. Taiwan's story begins long before modern politics, with indigenous Austronesian peoples who have lived on the island for thousands of years. Their languages and cultures share deep roots with communities across the Pacific and Southeast Asia. Under the Yuan dynasty in the 12th and 13th centuries, Han Chinese fishermen began settling along Taiwan's coast, while Western powers arrived in the 1600s. The Dutch occupied the island and called it Formosa, meaning beautiful island, a name still used today. In 1683, the Qing dynasty expelled the Dutch and officially annexed Taiwan, incorporating it as a prefecture of the Fujian province. In 1895, China ceded control of Taiwan to the Japanese after its defeat in the First Sino-Japanese War. Taiwan became Japan's first colony and a proving ground for its emerging imperial ideology. In Taiwan, Japan experimented with theories around governance, modernization, and cultural management. It sought to transform Taiwan into a model colony, showcasing Japan's ability to civilize Asia. To reach these goals, the Japanese implemented strategies to increase agricultural output, build roads, and electrify industry. These developments did establish the foundation for Taiwan's modern economy in the decades to come, including as a hub for high-tech manufacturing today. But in the process, Japan also crushed local rebellions, forced the local population to work in war-related efforts, including in manufacturing equipment and fighting in the military. Taiwan survived under Japanese occupation for 50 years. After Japan's defeat in World War II, the United States and Britain agreed with China's leader at the time, Chiang Kai-shek, that Taiwan had been a territory seized by Japan during its imperial expansion. As part of the post-war settlement, Taiwan's governance was handed back to China. However, China was in the midst of its own civil war, which was fought between 1927 and 1949. While the nationalist Kuomintang, or KMT, under Chiang, advocated for a democratic capitalist system aligned with Western values, the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, led by Mao Zedong, aimed to establish a socialist state rooted in Marxist-Leninist principles. The two groups had reached an uneasy truce to focus on the Japanese during much of World War II. And with the resolution of that conflict with Japan's departure, their battle over the legitimate rule of China broke out onto the main stage in 1946. While the KMT initially had the upper hand, including more troops, more advanced weaponry, and control of major cities, the CCP had strong momentum. For nearly 20 years, the CCP had focused on building support in underrepresented rural areas, gaining popularity with peasants through radical land redistribution from the elite to the poor and protecting villages from violence. They framed their struggle as one for the people against the Japanese, the imperialists, and the elite to create a new China. The KMT was deeply plagued by corruption and poor governance, which severely damaged its credibility. Officials were notorious for embezzling foreign aid sent by Western countries, profiting from shortages through black market activities, and extorting the population with excessive taxes and fees. In 1948, the government introduced the gold yuan to curb hyperinflation, claiming it was backed by US dollars and gold. But the currency was overissued, and insiders converted their money early. Ordinary citizens were forced to exchange at a fixed rate, only to see the new currency lose over 99% of its value, wiping out savings and further damaging the KMT's reputation. The CCP had won the support of rural peasants, which became strong pipelines for recruitment. While the CCP had less than 500,000 people through 1945, its ranks had swelled to around 4 million by 1949. Millions more supported as local militia and through logistics, such as providing shelter, food, and intelligence. This broad base of popular backing gave the CCP a strategic advantage, allowing its forces to maneuver fluidly through the countryside, gather crucial local knowledge, and maintain supply lines in hostile territory. Their integration into rural society transformed peasants from passive observers into active participants in the revolution, fundamentally shifting the balance of power in the Civil War. A combination of public support, military strategy, and the KMT's own internal failures led to growing CCP momentum. By late 1948, the KMT has suffered severe military defeats in the momentous Huahai campaign, and by January of 1949, the CCP had captured the capital of Beijing. Facing defeat, Chiang Kai-shek resigned as the head of the KMT and fled to Taiwan. In December of 1949, Chiang officially announced the relocation of the ROC government to Taipei, where it continued to maintain itself as the legitimate government of all of China. The CCP declared itself as the People's Republic of China, or PRC, in October of 1949. When the KMT fled to Taiwan, they also brought around 1.2 million people, mostly escaping supporters of the Nationalist Party. The new ROC government declared martial law in 1949 until 1987, a period known as the White Terror. During this time, officials targeted former KMT opponents, leftists, and suspected communists, along with those that advocated for political reform. Eventually, however, Chiang's son and successor allowed for gradual liberalization and the formation of opposition parties. Over the following decades, Taiwan transformed into a democracy with free elections and expanded civil liberties. China, in contrast, has remained under CCP rule as a communist nation, but underwent its own economic liberalization in the late 1970s, shifting to a more market-oriented economy despite strict political control. Despite their political differences, both the Republic of China and the People's Republic of China have historically asserted that they are the sole legitimate government of all of China. This shared claim forms the basis of the One China policy, which means both sides agree that there is only one China, but they disagree on which government represents it. For the PRC, as their global influence has grown, this policy serves as a key tool to prevent other countries from recognizing Taiwan as an independent nation, reinforcing its claim that Taiwan is a part of China. From China's perspective, Taiwan is a breakaway province, resisting reunification with its rightful government. But to fully grasp why Taiwan's status is such a sensitive and emotionally charged issue, one must look beyond simple geopolitics. Yes, Taiwan holds strategic value as a key node in the first island chain, and its alignment has implications for maritime security and US military posture in the region. And yes, allowing Taiwan to declare independence could embolden separatist sentiments in other regions like Tibet or Xinjiang. But the most deeply rooted reason lies in China's national psyche and historical memory. Taiwan represents one of the most enduring symbols of the century of humiliation, a period during which China lost territory, sovereignty, and dignity at the hands of foreign powers. The island was ceded to Japan in 1895 after the First Sino-Japanese War, marking what many view as the start of that era. Decades later, after the Chinese Civil War, the defeated Kuomintang fled to Taiwan, and with US support, including military protection from the 7th Fleet, they established a rival government that Beijing could not dislodge. To many in China, Taiwan's continued separation is a painful reminder of national weakness and foreign interference, when China lacked the power to shape its own destiny. In this light, reunification with Taiwan is not just a political goal. It is seen as the final chapter in restoring China's territorial integrity and national pride. As a result, it is well known that China desires eventual reunification, where Taiwan is brought back into the PRC's fold. While the CCP has reiterated its desire for reunification to occur through peaceful means, it has not ruled out military action, and the PRC remains unwavering in its commitment to achieving this objective. However, even as Taiwan's official status has been left in limbo for nearly 8 decades, the island has functionally operated as an independent people during this time. Over the years, generations have been born and raised in Taiwan, with no living memory of life in China. With these younger people come shifting perspectives. A growing majority of Taiwanese now identify primarily as Taiwanese, not Chinese. Support for the reunification with the mainland has declined sharply, as few have desired to merge with a system that feels politically, culturally, and socially distant. As the two places have diverged, the ROC has increasingly little legitimacy to claim China, and similarly, China over Taiwan. Food for thought. While Taiwanese beef noodle soup traces its roots to China, it has evolved over time into something uniquely its own, rich, distinctive, and Taiwanese. That's often how food works. Recipes travel, adapt, and transform with the people who carry them. Over time, a new food gains its own name and separation from the original dish. In many ways, culture and identity evolve similarly, shaped by their origins, yet earning their own character. This development is a natural process in the progression of history. In Taiwan's case, with its complex and contested past, the question becomes, when will Taiwanese beef noodle soup become distinct enough to truly be a national dish? What are some aspects of your national identity? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. If you enjoy global affairs with a side of spice packs, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for nomming with me today. See you next time.